is impossible to always hit the exact top or exact bottom. I'm looking for confirmations. I'm looking for breakaway gaps. I'm looking for volume. These are all tools that help you recognize when something has changed. So could gold and silver go lower? Possibly. I'm not shorting it, but could it go higher too? Well, hey, it did break the 200-day moving average. Subsequently, it took out the 300 and 400. That has not happened in a very long time. So if you look at the trade here, people who all approach, I think that you have to do what works for you.
A new silver company for investors, with Keith Neumeyer agreeing to become a major shareholder. Luke Norman, co-founder of Gold Standard Ventures, is the new chairman, and the company has acquired 3 former First Majestic silver properties. To learn more about this must-own silver stock, go to futuremoneytrends.com/silver1. That's futuremoneytrends.com/silver1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I am Kenneth Amaduri, and I'm joined today with a very popular guest, David Trungale of tradertours.com. David Trungale, thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure, Kenneth. Thank you for having me.
David, you've come on the show a number of times, and you've had some significant calls here, and you're a technical trader. And I want to get your thoughts here on what's going on in the current market. Now, we've had the Fed lack of decision, I would call it, with them not raising interest rates. And I mean, there could be a lot of reasons why they did that. Obviously, the election, we have a situation where the economy really isn't doing that great. But they like to talk tough, and they did. But let's get your thoughts here on essentially the economy, and then get your thoughts on what you think might happen in the stock markets.
Well, I am not really an economist, nor do I pretend to be. I am a trading technician, so technical analytics is the area that I focus on. This involves graphs, moving averages, support and resistance levels, Bollinger Bands, relative strength index. Okay, I could go on forever. And I personally like to view the markets as a separate unit from the economy. Okay, if you look at the Dow Jones, prior to this consolidation that really started back in 2015, the action was incredible. In fact, we are still in the middle of the second longest bull market in history. The only exception there would be the 1990s, because that bull market lasted longer. But if you look at the economy from 2009 up until 2015 or even now, it has not been that good. Okay, unemployment has been high. I know a lot of people focus on the price inflation factor, but the job reports, all of that, I like to deliberately block it out and focus on the market action, because the bull market was fantastic. The job market, the economy, not so hot. So as a trader, I'm trying to capitalize and profit off of action. And now I've been on record now for a year or two stating that I'm very cautious at this point. I've taken a significant share of my profits off the table. I have defensive dividend plays locked in. And the reason why is because I'm amending my system. I amend my system when the market makes a specific move. So the long-term consolidation is still into play. Yes, the market did barely poke up and set a new all-time high, but then we retreated again. And if you think about it, what is the market? The market is a reflection of human activity. When the market's skyrocketing, people have confidence. When it goes sideways, people have uncertainty. Okay, they're not sure. So just study the chart patterns. That's my philosophy. And look, and you can get a very good idea as to what people are thinking and how they're acting. And right now, we're still in that uncertainty stage.
Well, that's interesting, what you're calling uncertain. And I guess what is going through my mind is it more that it's overvalued? Because at a certain point, whether people are certain or not, once something becomes overvalued, doesn't matter what's going on in people's minds, right?
Well, that's true. And value is really a subjective word. I mean, what is value? A lot of the listeners I've listened into some of the podcasts that you do, they see gold and silver as money. I happen to disagree with that view. But again, value is a perception. And if enough people perceive the same thing, that perception of value transitions into reality. Okay? So, again, is the market overvalued? Well, it depends. I mean, some people said that it was overvalued back when it was at 12,000 or 14,000 or 16,000. So, again, if you're not sure to put a exact number on it, I think it's a fair claim. But again, I'm adapting to the technical action. I'm sticking with defensive dividend plays because they tend to hold up well when there's market turbulence.
David, you said something right there that, a lot of people are going to be scratching their head on, and that is that metals aren't money. And, going back for thousands of years, precious metals have shown to be money and, have outlasted all fiat paper currencies, and I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, what exactly you meant by that the metals aren't money.
Yeah, well, it's really pretty simple. When you say metals were money 5,000 years ago, you are correct, but they are not money today. And I've tried to emphasize this before. You can call society stupid. You can say that, yeah, they're just pieces of paper with serial numbers on it, but that's what people accept. And as long as people accept it as money, it will be money. And the track record of the dollar being the reserve currency and surviving in our lifetime is unlimited, because we have not seen a dollar collapse. So, again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying it's the way it should be. I'm just telling it the way it is. If you go down to the grocery store, they're going to want your dollars. If you got enough flights and went down to Mexico on vacation, they'll take your dollars.
Well,
and they'll take your dollars.
I understand what is officially referred to as money, but if I gave you an ounce of gold and $1,300 and came back to you 100 years later, it's the value that is stored in each one of those. You got fiat paper, 1,300 fiat paper dollars, and an ounce of gold. I think you got, which one would you put your trust in?
Well, you're correct, and I've tried to touch on this item as well. Over the very, very long term, decades and centuries, you're right. One could contest that virtually all assets go up in price. Where was real estate 50 years ago? Where was the price of gold 50 years ago? What was the price of land 50 years ago? You could all argue that they go up over time, but the truth remains that they are assets, and each asset class has a different amount of volatility and risk associated with it. Okay, so, if you look at the '08 real estate crisis, real estate was a hard asset, but what about all the individuals that were leveraged up buying hard assets in Phoenix, Arizona, and then they took a huge hit when the market came down? So while you are correct that paper currency has a track record over the very long term of diminishing in value, you have to understand that it is still the universal medium of exchange. It's what people take. Okay, so when we are facing times of uncertainty, and I'm talking about the short run, now how you want to categorize the short run is, again, it's another subjective thing, but look at the last 2 or 3 years. The Dow potentially has peaked where it's hard to say. If you look at the metal sell-off from 2011 all the way through 2015, cash held up okay then. And is 4 or 5 years a short term? Well, again, I really don't consider that short term. Some may. And since you mentioned metals, speaking of which, I did want to touch base on the technical action that we're seeing. I've been on record, and I'm known for shorting the whole sector, going back years ago successfully all the way up until now. And I would like to state on record that I have no longer been shorting gold or silver for the last several months. Did you want to touch base on commodities a bit more?
Well, I was just going back to the previous point, and I don't want to belabor it too much. So going back to your original point, one of the points you were making, talking about the dollar and having confidence in it at this point in such extreme circumstances is, I guess, what people are concerned about, what I'm concerned about. Every 40, 45 years, we get a massive change to our currency system. At least that's what we've seen historically now. And we got negative interest rates all around the world. We got exponential growth and debt here in the United States and around the world. And, there's just so many variables now. I mean, we're due for an economic recession here, and we're virtually at zero. The Fed is unable to raise rates. So many fundamental reasons why the system can't be trusted. And again, putting your trust in something that is real, something that will store value, something that even if there is a panic, there will always have some intrinsic value is what I personally feel is prudent. Now, this might go somewhat in line with what you just said about, precious metals going up from here. You mentioned you're not shorting them anymore, but just maybe your final thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of covered a lot of different topics there. Gold and silver, as far as, they have successfully sustained here a bottom for 9 months. And something I've talked about, and my followers would know this, that as a trend follower, I never look to liquidate or sell out at the absolute top or buy at the absolute bottom. And I don't care what anybody claims, it is impossible to always hit the exact top or exact bottom. I'm looking for confirmations, I'm looking for breakaway gaps, I'm looking for volume. These are all tools that help you recognize when something has changed. So could gold and silver go lower? Possibly. I'm not shorting it, but could it go higher too? Well, hey, it did break the 200-day moving average. Subsequently, it took out the 300 and 400. That has not happened in a very long time. So if you look at the trade here, people who bought gold or silver specifically in 2016 have been doing well. And it may continue that way for a while. But again, I'm making other trades in this market right now. I have dividend plays. I have short-term moving averages that I'm applying to make short-term gains. It's not like a one-size-fits-all approach. I think that you have to do what works for you and look at results. Look at your account statements. If you're doing something that's working, continue doing it. If it's not working, amend your system. That's exactly what I did when I closed out my short position, specifically in gold or silver. Okay, because I made substantial profits for the last several years. Earlier this year, it kept going up, and I thought, wait a minute, something's changed here. The gains that were coming easily vanished, so it's time to close it out. So again, I'm not necessarily recommending buying or selling, but if you do hold a position in gold or silver right now, the trend is up. And I'm looking for that confirmation. I'm facing the facts. It has been a great performing asset here in 2016, so perhaps it could go higher.
Well, David, I always appreciate your comments. You are a smart guy. And if people want to learn more about what you do, where would they go and what would they find?
Sure. If you go to tradertours.com, you can access a newsletter, and I am the primary publisher of that. It's focused on technical analysis and trading. You will be emailed my guidelines to investing. You have email support. I have recently extended out to phone consultations. And again, I really emphasize the idea of starting small. Okay, if you want to make a change, start out small, see how that goes. If it goes well, you can increase your positions. And I really think that education, learning, and observation, that's the only way to get better, is you have to actually do it. And if you fail, that's okay. In fact, I've learned a lot more from my failures than my gains. It's only after failing can you appreciate what you did wrong, learn from your mistakes, and then move forward.
Well, that's good advice right there. David Trungale, everyone, of tradertours.com. David, thanks for coming on.
Kenneth, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you again at some juncture.